Majority of the Northern Hemisphere for the next 2 weeks is going to be below normal temperatures on the 30-year average. La Niña's kick in. That's going to impact our winter. Also have sunspots decreasing. We're off solar maximum, heading into solar minimum. Greenland gaining in ice. Frost damage on the crops early. So what does this portend for our food and stability in society, you might ask? And I had to shake my head when I saw this chart here. That is indeed the entire Northern Hemisphere that you're looking at. That blue is below normal temperatures, and this is in degrees Celsius. Where there's white, that's zero balance. We got heating over Greenland, and we got some heating over northern Kamchatka into that peninsula area off Russia there. This is a staggering chart to look at. Nearly the entire Northern Hemisphere is at or below the 30-year baseline average from 1991 to 2020. And dropping you over here into the sunspots. As you can see, we have definitely passed over solar maximum, heading into solar minimum. Could this be one of the reasons that things are starting to show a cooler profile on our planet as we descend out of that? The grand solar minimum and all the data that was associated with that was forecast for solar cycle 24 into 25, and it should have occurred this solar cycle based on that data, but it did not. So is this just showing us that we're going to move forward one solar cycle? A lot of people are predicting a precipitous drop off there versus following the regular curve out. And if we do get that straight off a cliff drop into solar minimum, we are going to see once in a 400-year cycle impact on our crops. Now, would this be the reason that the economy is being shifted right as we speak? Is this the reason our entire world's been upset and forced into a new system as we speak? Because perhaps there's some foreknowledge that this is truly the rollover point into this grand solar minimum. And with this one, shocking headline, should have been worldwide news, but it's not. Over the last 12 months, Greenland gained 50 gigatons of ice, more than the average. So the melting has ceased. We're into the gain period again. You start to see that blue line there is above the baseline. Again, what we're looking at in terms of gains. Now, that was the whole ploy of trying to get us on electric cars and, go into different types of light bulbs, etc. But it's not making any fanfare. I wonder why not. Mission accomplished. And if it is, it's time to change our lifestyles, isn't it? Looking at La Niña here, setting in for the winter. Now that's going to change our flow patterns here coming into the United States, somewhere from around British Columbia and pulling further south. And we see this traditionally over the last 150 years, how it's changed weather patterns in the U.S. So many people that trade crops rely on this as a stable benchmark on how weather patterns are shifted. I encourage you to do your own research on that. Now, looking at the Hungatonga eruption, the water vapor does look like it's predominantly out of the atmosphere. That, if you look at 2021 coming into 22, that significant green there, that was the water vapor, 14% more moisture in the atmosphere in a single event. You could see it centered over Tonga, a little bit south of the equator. That's where it was literally off the charts. They don't have measurements for it. You can see how subsequently it spread over both hemispheres, but now it seems to be dissipating and raining out. That is the reason we are having a lot more floods, because that high altitude mesospheric ejection, if you're getting close to retirement or just thinking ahead, you've probably done a solid job of saving. But here's something most people don't consider. How much of that money is just sitting in cash? It might feel safe, but holding too much cash guarantees one thing: you're losing purchasing power. Inflation eats away at it, and the dollar's value keeps slipping. That's why more people are looking at real assets like physical gold and silver to protect their savings. And one company makes that easy: Noble Gold Investments. You can buy gold, silver, coins, bars. They'll ship to your home, or you can have it stored securely. It's a smart way to convert cash into something that actually holds value. Visit 2030gold.com. That's 2030gold.com. Because when you own real assets, you own real wealth. And please remember, Noble Gold, fair, transparent. They're not going to pressure you. They're going to give you actual information and real options in which to make good decisions. Again, that's 2030gold.com. click on that link in the description box below. Is now coming down into our lower 20, 25,000 foot area where clouds form, and it's all blending in with the extra precipitation that's already available up there, and that's why we're getting these rainouts. In addition to more cosmic rays from those dual naked eye novas, it was just a recipe for flooding disaster in our atmosphere. As we move forward, that should come back to some normal green coloration into the parts per million inside the atmosphere. So, another couple of years and that should stabilize, but still there's an extra bit of catalyst in there. BAM Weather putting this one out. Wanted to walk you through the progression here. This is September 7th, just a couple days ago, and then it had continued for a few more days. We got serious frost damage across the grow belts here. Multi-day early frost. So what you can see is that frost line, they drew it in there. That's a significant damage on the plants. Maturation period is happening right now, and nothing had been harvested up to this point, and farmers were racing to take some harvest versus losing it. The frost line was there last weekend, and it moved a little bit further south and to the east the following subsequent days. And it got even cooler during those days, down into hard freeze warnings over in the Dakotas. And during this time, all these record cold temperatures were set, whether you knew it or not. I don't think you did. Didn't make that many headlines. Would have made local, though. They had to report on this. We look up in the Dakotas and we start to see quite a bit of, shall we say, coolness. So I jumped over into some of the weather ag boards, and yields are cut around 10% according to older studies based on the grain fill and the cold damage on the plants here. The premature death is what they call it. It's actually when you live vibrant plant growing and it gets frozen or down to extreme frost damage and it just stops growing and it's at the end of its cycle at that point. 10% is what we're looking at on the normal there. So you got to think about 10% of the crops, which I'll come to a map in just a second, but even the soybeans were damaged, and I will agree, probably not ideal for September 4th. This would be something that you would see in November, but the leaves would be brown already, and those seeds would have dried already, depending on their utilization of field and drying technologies and whether they're spraying to get it dried or they're just going to harvest it and run it through a dehydrator. That aside, those plants don't come back. One and done on this. So whatever was still in the field maturing, as you can see, all of it is not coming back. So the losses are going to be, predicted 10%-ish. So again, the freeze warnings, if we go up into, this is western North Dakota, freeze warnings all across that area. Crops had not been harvested, and hard freezes and frosts are different animals altogether in terms of damage on potential yields. So we're looking over here, you can see these same areas going down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit in the beginning of September here through these first couple of weeks. That's on the 6th, just even a day or so ago. This has been a prolonged, continuous event. It's not like it hit once and it's done. So our crops in this area, along with Canada and the United States, are all completely affected by this. To be seen where it's going to pull us out. Now, another thing, this is interesting that the frost map matches up with now going to be the extreme drought map for the next 16 days. So those same areas in white that you see over Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, etc., these are the same areas that were frost damaged. It's possible if plants can uptake water, they can repair themselves to an extent. But now we're coming into at least a 2 to 3 week drought where no water will be available. If I were going to engineer the environment to do something to destroy American crops, this is the perfect plan for that. Freeze them and then starve them of water. Now, will it be all of them American and Canadian crops? No, but it's significant enough to drive some prices up. They're already looking at prices starting to move after they get out there to do some assessment. So come back 21st, we're still talking a couple weeks away here. From this point until then, zero moisture. People are astounded, like zero moisture. It's almost as if the entire atmosphere in that area has been cordoned off, for a better term, to allow no moisture to cover that area at all, which is Strange. Then it continues to expand from that point forward. See, it's going to retain that sort of Midwest grow belt shape for a while, but then from the 22nd, it shows expansion, cold freezes, and then extreme drought. That's like the end of the crop yield for this year. Whatever they get is what they get. So take a look in continuous how they're trying to monitor this situation here. I'll be doing it with you to try to bring you out videos. Even European models are showing something that's really it's if you were going to consider it like a sigma event, this would be like a 5 sigma, something on that range, maybe 6 sigma, with no moisture at this time of the year, with all these different snow patterns and frost and cool event. Generally this is a very volatile time where things are moving fast. A lot of weather fronts coming through. We're in the change of the seasons. Normally it would be continuously moving, but to sit still for this long in the change of seasons, something in rotation in the atmosphere is definitely off, way off. I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Please support independent journalism. Adapt 2030, accepting Monero and Pirate Chain. Those deposit addresses are below in the description box. Also, Victory Nutrition International, Trim Rocks, looks like candy, works like science, burn, boost, balance. Check them out, vnilife.com/civilization, and use the code cycle20 at checkout to save 20% off your order. Where do you think this winter is going to go? And please share this with friends and family, because what's happening with traceability on the blockchain, and also what's being put into our food supply and how the food supply is being controlled and going to be more tightly controlled, that's definitely a conversation we need to have amongst our families and communities right now. See you next time. Bye for now.